What are the chances that we aren't alone? Not just in the universe, but here on Earth as well. UFO sightings have been documented for the last 80 years at least, but a lot of UFOlogists believe it streaks back to the beginning of civilization, and the two just may correlate. For my whole life, I've known there is something else, someone else, flying through the skies with impunity. My mission is to do whatever it takes to help alleviate the stigma around the phenomena. The most credible sightings to date are from highly trained and professional observers in the US military. Those witnesses have had direct encounters and risked their life and career speaking out about it. This is not the way we should handle this as a society. Science needs to be able to come to terms with this. We all do. It's real. It's happening now, and it's happening above you and around you. This is not just a United States security issue. This is a global issue. We need to normalize the subject so that we can understand and we can start to gather the evidence on who, what, where, all to help us explain the why. My name's Tyler Roberts, and I am a believer.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh, big dude.
Questions have left people speculating for what seems to be since the beginning of intelligent life. What happens after we die, and what and who is out there in the universe? Are we alone? It can't be. Are we being visited by civilizations from another galaxy, another dimension? We may have answers that are closer than you think. Total disclosure, we'll dive into the most credible UFO sightings and encounters as we journey for answers. Join us as we try to change the perspective of unidentified flying objects in the public eye and allow for the release of more information from our governments. There is a vast amount of eyewitness testimony, with reports of physical evidence and even photographic and video evidence. However, the general public demands more evidence each time something new is presented. There is more evidence in the UFO phenomenon than there was in the O.J. Simpson trial. Who are the people in our government or leaders around the world that hold the answers? Are they being withheld from the public for a reason? Since 1947, the questions of aliens and UFOs have baffled many experts. But far before then, in ancient cultures, the space people are talked about in many Native American tribes right here in the United States. Has the US government been complicit in covering up the presence of UFOs to protect the people, or are they keeping it a secret for a more sinister reason? With the stigma slowly fading away around the fact that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence, whether that's physical video, radar, etc., there are some people in the US government who don't want this released to the public, which is highly illegal. When it's the very people that enforce what's legal and what's not, it's hard to hold those entities accountable. We, the people of this nation, need to start demanding answers from our elected officials. The question needs to shift from are they visiting us to why are they visiting us very soon. And if we keep looking the other way at this phenomenon, then when it comes to disclosure, that's what is going to cause mass panic. UFO investigators and experts believe that the government is slowly and tactically releasing information leading up to disclosure. Disclosure Day is the day in the hopefully not near future where we, the people, finally and collectively have an answer to the question, are we alone in the universe? We'll be starting with what most experts consider the granddaddy of all UFO cases. In 1947, in a small town called Roswell, New Mexico, in the beginning of July, media nationwide reported civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold's story of seeing what became known as flying saucers. On Saturday night, July 5th, 1947, rancher W.W. Mac Brazel made a trip from his remote ranch to the town of Corona, New Mexico. The ranch had no means of communication with the outside world, leaving Brazel unaware of the flying saucer craze of the prior days. There was a reported thunderstorm. The rancher was on the front porch sitting watching the weather when he saw lights over the night sky. Dismissing what he saw, but it does stick in his head, is quite peculiar, especially for the time period. Before 1950, World War II had just ended with a literal bang. The first atomic bombs were created and dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The creation of this caliber weapon and technology is what most UFO enthusiasts believe to be the correlation. The advent of nuclear weapons gave humans the capability of wiping Earth off the map entirely, which would send ramifications far through the galaxy. It is believed to be the threshold that sent the signal out into the galaxies far, far away. Earth and its inhabitants had reached a degree of danger, not just from ourselves, but throughout the galaxy. What if we are being visited? Much like in the film Arrival, to be given an education. In a lot of these cases of close encounters, of varying degrees, those involved have an overwhelming sense of the dangers of technology. These beings seem to be capable of transferring their thoughts, not using vocal cords, but some means of telepathy. Kevin Day of the 2004 USS Nimitz famous encounter with the Tic Tac craft remembers having end-of-the-world nightmares for months after their experience. And he is far from the first to say this. Razzle dug out the debris and then took it to the sheriff's office in Roswell. The sheriff called Roswell Army Airfield, which assigned the matter to Major Jesse Marcel. Jesse will become the key witness in this entire story, and if his testimony of what happened is the truth, then Roswell was indeed the biggest government cover-up and subsequent secret of all. Razzle took Marcel back to the debris site. The two gathered up more pieces of this craft's debris. Marcel would later say that the material that was scattered around the field had an almost memory-like quality. However, you couldn't rip it, break it, burn it. Essentially, you could crumble it like a piece of paper and it would bounce back to its core shape. He referred to it as not of this earth. Convinced that this was the biggest find in human civilization and that his name would be forever engraved in human history, Marcel played ball. They loaded the truck with the materials, which he says took the better part of a day. While all this is happening, another report comes into the sheriff's office from an entirely different location in Roswell. Close to the first site, and determined to be a second crash site, is where a family came across what they saw to be the rest of the craft from the field. The side of the craft seemingly broke off. The rest of the craft was stuck in a side of a hilly area. After the sheriff dispatched a local firefighter to the scene to determine what this was, once and for all, a call came in from the US government telling him to stand down on his investigation. But it was already too late for that. Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel William Blanchard. Blanchard reported the findings to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield. General Ramey ordered the material flown to Fort Worth immediately. Marcel boarded a B-29 Super Fortress and made the flight to Fort Worth. Public Information Officer Walter Haut issued a press release stating that personnel from the Field 509th Operation Group, which, by the way, the 509th was the only atomic rigged bomb squad in the world at that time. The correlation between nuclear and UFOs continues to grow larger. Had recovered a flying disc which had landed on a ranch near Roswell. The reason this story spread so quickly was because of the source. People tend to forget that the source of it was the US military itself. The commander of the Roswell base allegedly wanted his name stamped all over this find, due to it being most likely the first contact between humans and something else. The report read as follows. The many rumors regarding flying disc became a reality yesterday. The intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force Roswell Army Airfield was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of one of the local ranchers in the sheriff's office of Chavez County. The flying object landed on a ranch near Roswell sometime last week. Not having phone facilities, the rancher stored the disc until such time as he was able to contact the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office reportedly in turn notified the base and Air Force Major Jesse A. Marcel of the 509th Bomb Group Intelligence Office. The action was immediately taken and the disc was picked up at the rancher's home. It was inspected at the Roswell Army Airfield and subsequently loaned by Major Marcel to higher headquarters. Decades later, Roswell radio announcer Frank Joyce recalled contacting Haut by telephone to verify the release. Recalled Joyce, "I said, Walter, don't run this story. If you do, you're going to get in trouble. What Marcel didn't intend on was the fact that he was being lured into a trap. Marcel would not knowingly be the patsy of the US government, and they needed him to shut this story down. After arriving on the base in Fort Worth, the debris was allegedly stored and replaced with rubber, sticks, and common foil from a weather balloon. After being told to shut his mouth and that he didn't see anything, nor did this event ever take place, Marcel then started to gain perspective on what was happening. After that, Jesse Marcel was involved in a press conference with the media. They displayed the altered debris and had experts of weather balloons and other tools of its nature say it was exactly that. How did an intelligence officer, someone whose job it was to be in control of the top nuclear arsenal, which was considered to be the highest of priority and top secret project before this Roswell event, in the hands of someone who can't tell an aircraft from a weather balloon? It makes no sense. Nobody in their right minds would confuse these two things. And if they did, they should not be in control of atomic weapons. Either way, it's cause for a national security investigation. It always sat so poorly with me that the government put this out as an excuse, forcing this man to take pictures with this fake debris. You can see the look of disbelief on his face throughout the entire shoot. There is a piece of the memo in plain sight in one photo. People have used digital recreation and other tools to zoom in on that report. Two words stick out: victims and disc. If this was simply a weather balloon, why would an official report that the general is holding use these words? In the very picture with the fake debris? Could the proof be all in one picture? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Tensions were high between the US and Russia in 1947. The growing risk of war with the Soviets was lurking. If there was material recovered from Roswell, this technology would be the thing that changed the tides of war, the way we see ourselves among the cosmos in general. Whoever masters or cracks the key to this tech first would assuredly have control of the world. After seeing what happened and how far we had to go in World War II, only now to be in conflict with the Soviets, I can see why the government may have wanted to keep this out of the public eye. It truly could have been for national security, but the time for suppression is over now. We as a species are staring down the barrel on this planet as it is. Shortly after this incident in Roswell in 1947, the NSA, CIA, and DoD were all formed. Coincidence? Of course, the debunkers will argue that it was growing tensions in the Cold War that saw these orgs created. I think that it was due to the recovery of crash material at Roswell. Soon, we will discuss the story of Bob Lazar and how it ties into Roswell at length. In the 1980s, a man named Bob Lazar worked on the secret base, Area 51, in a location called S4, which at the time was not known to the public. Even people in the government, aside from a select few, knew of the existence of such a base. He recalls being brought in to reverse engineer a craft engine, observing quickly that what he was trying to reverse engineer was an anti-gravity craft, saying also that they had 9 different craft in Area 51, all of which used the same manipulation of gravity. It all ran on this unknown element, element 115. Also, at the time, this element did not exist in mainstream science, but would later be discovered and stabilized, vindicating part of Lazar's story, along with many other things. In a future Total Disclosure article and video, we will discuss the story of Bob Lazar as it does tie in to Area 51 and Roswell, and what they are doing on that secretive base in the shadows. In November of 1953, Dwight Eisenhower signed a bill into law. This law allows the government of the United States to withhold information from the public if it is in the best interest of national security. Who decides what is in the best interest of the public? Is it them or is it us? The initial story is key. Why would these men, who were in control of the most destructive weapon in the world, trained to the highest degree of the Air Force and experts in all things aviation, mistake a balloon for a flying saucer? Ask yourself these questions. Why would the military close off the entire town of Roswell? Why would all of the precautions be taken for a balloon? All we know is the witness testimony does not align with the official story. There's always the possibility that people wanted to get their names on this story for publicity and other UFO sightings to feel the attention. But most of these witnesses, the real ones, want people to listen. They want you to know the truth. They want disclosure. There are in fact UFOs, the craft we can't explain, that fly with impunity through our and all of Earth's airspace. This is not just a United States-based issue or national security threat. This is a global issue, one of the highest degree, one that the governments of the world need to come together on. If we fail to do so, we wait until they drop onto the White House lawn because we left them without a choice, there will be chaos. We are living through history right now. With the Nimitz incident, the Go Fast UFO, the gimbal video, the Pentagon has all but informed us there are crafts in our airspace, and we are nothing aside from helplessly naive.